Welcome back to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast. It's Tuesday, September 2nd, and it's episode 34. On this month's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming end-of-life dates for products that you need to know about within the Microsoft ecosystem, some new AI capabilities being added to OneDrive and SharePoint for Copilot users, and last but not least, we're going to be taking a look at a slew of new features that are headed to Microsoft Teams soon. All right, Holly, welcome back to the show. We had Chris here last month, which was great, but it's always great to have you on the show, whenever we can. I know
Yep.
things have been busy for you this summer. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you've been up to.
Well, I last time I think I was on the podcast, I was in Minnesota for a month. Glad to be back here in Santa Barbara, California, where there's almost no humidity. So, you know, I love Minnesota, but I'm really starting to get climatized here in California. Um, yeah, it's already back to school here in California. So I've got a senior in high school this year and a freshman, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm starting to see the real kind of like midlife parental transition
Yeah.
starting to take shape.
You're on the fringe. You've got one that's headed to college soon, and you've got another
Yep,
one that's about to go through the 4 years that you just got out of.
yep,
So that's
yep,
exciting.
yep. But other than that, it's pretty quiet. Um, how about yourself?
Um, so we missed each other by about a month.
I
You were
know.
in Minnesota, and then a month later I was in Minnesota.
Yep.
So I was in between Minnesota and Wisconsin the first week of August. I got to meet with a couple of my customers out there that I provide account management for. Hasn't really been a whole lot going on in the AI space from Copilot. I mean, they did add GPT-5. Chris and I
Yes.
talked a little bit about that last podcast, but I don't know, the temperature check on it's a little weird because when it first rolled out is they kind of made it out to be this generational leap and it just really
Yeah.
wasn't a generational leap, and they added it in the Copilot, and I've seen a little bit of a difference, but I haven't seen a big difference. The
Right.
one thing that I'm really excited to play with from a GPT standpoint and integration standpoint is that new Copilot function in Excel. I've seen a lot
Right.
of videos out there from kind of MVPs and insiders that already have access to it talking about it, and I'm kind
Right.
of scratching my head because I'm not really sure how or why you'd want to use it in Excel. Especially given the fact that Microsoft kind of came out and said that, don't necessarily trust the output and you might not get the same output every time because it's being generated. So I'm
I
excited to play with it. Haven't had a chance yet. Ignite's coming up in about a month and a half at this
I
point. So
know.
I'll be out there with Chris and a couple others from the Virteva team. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. My birthday was
Yeah,
last month too. So I hit the big 4-2 finally.
oh, nice. Nice.
Um,
Yeah. While we are we'll maybe cross paths. I can't, it's one of those things where with Ignite happening almost in my backyard, it's always like it's nice to think I wouldn't have to fly to Ignite, but
mhm.
also at the same time, I'm like, should I just watch it virtually? So still kind of figuring out what I really want to do.
It's
But
it's an experience,
definitely
that's for
excited to
sure.
hear what's going to be announced. Of course, we're all expecting a bunch of great AI announcements. So um, looking forward to hear the rumor drums start banging as the dates
Yeah.
near.
Yeah, AI is
Yep.
all where it's at right now for
Yep.
Microsoft. That and every other tech company on the
Yeah.
planet is just hinging all of their
AI
bets on
assistants.
AI.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's get into the show topics for today. So again, we got three of them. We're going to talk about some new features coming to SharePoint OneDrive, some new stuff headed to Teams. But I kind of want to do the last reminder for anyone
Yeah.
that's listening in September that if you're
You
an
have
IT
one
admin or
more for
you're a
the cheap
director,
seats.
yeah, just be prepared if you haven't already taken steps. And I would assume that most people that listen to this show regularly already have taken some first steps. But on October 14th, we're going to see some major products kind of have some changes as they reach end
Right.
of life. starting with Windows 10. So if you're not already moving to Windows 11, you probably should be, because that's going to be that kind of inflection
Right.
point where, yes, you can continue with Windows 10. You can pay for those additional security updates. There won't be any more feature updates being added. In fact, there haven't
Right.
been for a number of months now, but you'll have to start paying on a per device basis. I think it starts around like $60 a device or something like that for the year, which isn't bad. At one point, I want to say that there was some extended life on devices where you had to pay per month, and it was much
Yeah.
more troublesome. But so Windows 10 is coming up, end of life. We hardly knew you. What was Windows 10 around for about 10 years, right? I want to say that it was
I mean,
introduced in like June of 2015-ish. Maybe not publicly
I'm
available.
trying to think of like who had the longest run, XP or 10.
Oh,
That's
I
how
think
old.
I think it was probably XP, because I was doing
There's
XP to
probably
7
still
upgrades.
some XP machines out there,
Yeah.
running, you know,
Um, Other
big
important things
parts
to
of
kind of keep your eye
enterprises.
out on, and I've got kind of the notes up on the screen, and as
Yep.
always, we'll put these in the show notes just so that you can actually look
Yep.
through them yourself. But the other big one is really kind of probably Office 2016 and 2019, and
Big
then
ones.
OneNote as well as another big one to
Yep.
be aware of.
OneNote for Windows 10.
Yes.
Uh, Never really caught fire. But for those organizations that do have people using it, they need to be using OneNote, the app that comes with Office. So yeah, Office 26, 2019, man, I run into these a lot in my day-to-day work, working with end users, working with clients, both enterprise and small business. Um, it's time.
Yep.
So a good kind of call to action, and honestly, I really don't want to not mention Exchange Server 2016 and 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Don't, please, you must you must get off of Exchange Server. But Office 2016 and 2019, it's just a good reminder for a couple of things. One, if you have a Microsoft 365 or Office 365 SKU, E3, E5, government licenses, if you have that, you own the apps for enterprise. People can install them. Yes, it's different. It's, if you're not using a version that's connected with Microsoft 365, right? Like, it's a change, but chances are you own it. If you
Yep.
own Office 365, Microsoft 365, chances are you own it. So you should get those installations
Even for
running.
smaller customers too, Business Premium and Standard have access to those
Right.
kind of apps for enterprise or apps for business.
Yep.
And that's really the key takeaway is, like, I don't see many large organizations still using 2016 or 2019, because those are kind of the standalone ones that don't really connect into the
Right.
OneDrive and the SharePoint ecosystem. So if you do still have it though, like, this is your opportunity to make the move. However, there is quite a big slice of training and enablement to prepare users for what it means to move from a 2019 to a to a more connected version of those applications that can also take advantage of Copilot, right? Because Copilot is not accessible in 16 and 19, and I don't believe it's accessible in, what is it, Office 22 right now is the new standard release, I think, that doesn't have the connectivity.
It's, and Microsoft is going to continue to push us off of these kind of standalone versions because they don't want to support 9 versions of Office. They want to support like 2. So we need to, Microsoft is going to drag us all, some willingly, some kicking and screaming, onto perpetual servicing, or the, their servicing model, where it's like, that version is old. You got to start using the new version.
So let's talk about
Microsoft. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's talk about kicking and screaming, because in the pre-show we were talking about how when Microsoft Intune was announced, which is a way that you can manage your devices and manage your apps, people were kicking and screaming because they didn't want to leave Configuration Manager. So let's talk a little bit about how adopting Intune can actually
Right.
make managing these products
Yes.
and installing them and removing old versions a little bit easier.
No, you're 100% right. If you're licensed for Intune, I know not every group is, but if you're licensed for Intune and you're still using SCCM, you're still trying to cobble like what updates you need to push out, what policies you need to push out through the what's now the old way. This is
Hmm.
also a good time not only to think about how you're going to make this move if you're still on Windows 10, if you're still on Office 2016, 2019. If you don't have your arms around your devices, what devices do you have? Are they up to
Hmm.
date? How have they checked in? Are they joined to the when was the last domain login? What apps are installed on them? Intune is a great way to manage big changes like this. So
Yep.
if you're feeling totally overwhelmed and you're not using Intune, I'm not saying between now and October 14th, you got to get this all stood up, but you should reprioritize a bit around how you're going to manage your devices, because I think people that are using Intune are going to have an easier time understanding the impact of these end of support changes, but also getting through them.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you looked at Intune 5 years ago and you're like, this is not for us, like it's not,
Right,
it doesn't do everything we need it to do. And let's not even mince words and say that it still does everything that SCCM does or
right.
other things do. Like, because there are still some gaps there, but I would say that it's 90 to 95% of the way to where most organizations need it at this point. And
Right.
when you look at things like the advantages of also being able to do mobile application management and mobile device
Yes.
management with it instead of paying for like a Moz 360 or another tool, is it's just one more thing that if you have an E3 or an
100%.
E5 or business premium, that it's in your toolbox. Take advantage of it. Consolidate. There's no need to be paying for the
Oh
the
my gosh.
extra products that might be costing you 30, 40, 50, $60,000 a year when this is
Exactly.
already included with your licenses.
Yeah, I mean, you and I know the pain of, we work on projects where
Yep.
we're re-enrolling devices in Intune. And it's a pain, right? To go from the MOS 360, from the AirWatches, you know, there's pain in change, but that's kind of one of the reasons why we do what we do is we help people through those changes. But I just think of this moment, especially with a heavy hitter like Windows 10 going away,
Hmm.
with some of these bigger changes. It's always a good reminder to say, like, you can do it. You can use Intune. And that's also something that I also want to speak to kind of the consulting employers of the world, like the world will move this way. And it's great when we have legacy knowledge around, right? Like we need people who still understand, SCCM and SCOM and things like that. But it's not, you know, we have probably more reason to sharpen that Intune side. Um,
Hmm.
so same with anyone, if anyone is listening, right? If you're like, I'll never learn Intune.
That's okay though, because we at Virteva, we're doing 15, 20 Intune projects a year still, I feel like, sometimes
Yep,
more than that. So we have a high degree of expertise in it, and
exactly.
part of that configuration and rollout that we do for different customers that need that help, there's a training component to it as well. Like we'll sit along
Exactly.
your admins, we'll help show you how to use it. And if you just don't have the manpower to do it yourself, that's where our managed services kind of
Right.
discipline comes into play, is just let us manage it for you and we can help you out.
Right. And it really, as Scott, you said, we're not going to keep banging the drum on this, but it is such, I think of Windows 10 as like, oh my gosh, it's it's coming soon. Like Windows 10 is going to be end of support, but I think rather than us, like you and I both know how, this is seismic for some organizations, but what it really means for something to go end of support Because a lot of people wonder, is it as bad as like these tools like self-destruct on October 14th? What does it really mean? So if you're someone who's in operations and you're hearing us talk about this, we know, it's like October 14th, October 14th. What does it mean? And here, in a nutshell, we're not going to get security updates. We're not going to get non-security updates, which means, features, new
Yep.
buttons, new tools. If you hear about something new in Office that's coming and it's exciting and you still have Office 2019, sorry, you won't get it. Bug fixes and technical support. So these tools will not just stop working, but the starting October 14th, sort of a line in the sand of these things becoming inherently riskier to continue to use in your environment from a security perspective. And then also, you're not going to get, no longer will you get sprinkles and toppings on top of the sundae. There will be no feature updates for these tools. Or if there's a bug fix that comes out, it won't be for any of these products that you see here.
One last thing to talk about on that too is products and services that work with these applications also generally stop working over time as well as they become updated. So if you're relying on some sort of add-on for Office 2016, that add-on may no longer, on the next update, it may no longer work. Or maybe just there's a piece of code within that application, if it's cloud-based, that just no longer talks.
Right.
The developers aren't going to fix that in a lot of cases anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just one more reason to realize that you have to put the time and effort into doing the upgrade. And we're not trying to say that you have to go to apps for enterprise, that if you buy volume-based licensing, you're still more than able to use that and just transition up to the 2022 version, the 2021 version, maybe even the 2025 or 2026,
right,
whenever they release another version of just the standalones. But there are advantages to obviously going to apps for enterprise.
Yeah, if you own it, this is something, I mean, I talk about this all the time with customers, and I think you're absolutely right, Scott. Like, it's ultimately, everyone's choice what tools they want to pay for and support in their environment. But if you are on any sort of cost-cutting directive, if you are trying to save where you can, it's the kind of the age-old meme of, moms saying, we've got food at home. We don't need to go out to eat. We've got food at home. That's the way that I think of a lot of the bigger Microsoft 365 SKUs like E3, E5. Chances are you already own a lot of this stuff. You just have to get ready to deploy it. And that's, I think Scott and I are always willing to, say we're willing to help, right? We're willing to help make that a reality for anyone that's interested.
Absolutely. Well said, Holly. All right, let's move on to the next topic. We're going to take a quick break as we get set up to look at some of the new settings in OneDrive and SharePoint, and then also taking a look at some of the new stuff coming to Teams.
Yes.
All right, we are back. Holly, we've got everything set up here. So we're going to start taking a look at it. Looks like you've got OneDrive pulled up there first.
Yep.
I'll turn it over to you. I got to spend a lot of the blabbering time on the end of life support
Me
stuff.
too.
So I'll let you kind of continue through. Go ahead.
Well, so a couple of things that just, I think we're going to talk about some updates that are coming to SharePoint. But the first thing, in order to set up talking about the update that's coming to SharePoint and sort of this, copilot integration with document libraries, is this sort of maybe unsung, underutilized feature in OneDrive Online is the copilot integration. So a lot of people that I work with that are either new users of OneDrive, new users of SharePoint Online or Teams for file storage, is they really love being able to look at their files in Windows. So they use their File Explorer in Windows. They have the OneDrive Sync client enabled. They use shortcuts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. and they just love the convenience of going through Windows. But if you always look at OneDrive and SharePoint Online through Windows, you may be missing out on some great Copilot features if you have the Copilot license. So this isn't for our basic, Copilot chat users. This is for people that have the full license for Copilot. And that is this integration into document libraries. So I'm going to show you what it looks like today in OneDrive, meaning if you have a license for Copilot, you can use this today in OneDrive. Go nuts. And that is when you're looking at your directory, if you're hovering over a file or you check a box next to a file, you're going to see, in addition to the more options and share button, you're going to see a Copilot button. And if you want to, you can summarize a document with Copilot. You don't even have to open this file. You can get a summary. You can create an FAQ about the document. You can create audio overviews, or you can ask a question about a document. So just as you're browsing, if you check the box next to a couple of files, you can see the Copilot option to even compare files. Now, these are not identical copies, so the comparison would be vast, but it does allow you to do sort of, I can check the box next to multiple files and start asking questions about those files using Copilot. This is an awesome feature, especially if you write a lot of documentation, you reuse documents to write new versions of things, whatever it may be. This built-in feature, if you have a Copilot license, it's awesome. But you're not going to see it if you're always looking at your OneDrive or SharePoint document libraries through File Explorer in Windows. You actually have to come online and look at those features. Today, there isn't, or it's just starting to roll out, there isn't this ability in SharePoint document libraries. It's currently just available to OneDrive users, but I have great news. It is coming to SharePoint document libraries.
Yep.
So I don't quite know what it's going to look like through the Teams UI. If maybe you use OneDrive in File Explorer, but you still browse through your files in the Teams desktop app. But this is a great opportunity to start getting familiar with how useful this could be for you if you have a Copilot license, and get ready to start using it in SharePoint as well.
So Holly, are you able to compare? So would I be able to select, say, a Word file and an Excel file and compare them or ask questions
I
on
believe
them?
so. So we'll just pick on these two files. I can compare them. Again, live demo, not sure what it's going to try and do for me here.
I mean, I am glad, while it's kind of doing its work here, I am glad that they're making this a little bit easier, because I remember when this feature first rolled out for OneDrive, I want to say it was earlier this year or late last year, is you literally, all the files had to be in the same folder. So I would have to pick
Right.
up folders on SharePoint, move them to my OneDrive, put them into a location, and then you could only compare, I think, 2 at a time. I think you can compare up to 5 now. Is that right?
Yes, I think it's up to 5, but here it's going to go through and build this comparison, which I think I'll close out, because like I said, we're literally comparing apples and oranges, but it will go through and generate a full, comparison. So a good example would be, you have multiple people that have been editing iterative versions of a document. Maybe you're not using the built-in version control in your Microsoft 365 files. You could run a comparison to find, key differences between multiple iterative versions. But it's one of those things where I really, it's so helpful. So
Is there a limit on file types? Like, what type of different files can you actually review with this?
I'm not 100% sure. I probably only have Office files in here because it's
I
a
I
demo
think
folder.
I think that it's Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and PDFs.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to allow you to do like, I mean, it's possible it would do image comparisons or video comparisons, because I know Copilot will talk to those, but I don't have all those details in front of me.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I mean, listen, I run our workshop on it, and I'm fairly sure that I've got those 4 file types down. I think that it might also be able to do .aspx files, but who's going to have a .aspx file sitting in their OneDrive?
Never know. But it is one of those things where
Oh, the audio
creating,
overview feature too. That is an amazing new feature. We talked about this on the show a couple months back when we did
yep,
notebooks, but this is finding its way into OneDrive and SharePoint. I don't know if you would just want to do like a quick playthrough on it just to kind of show our YouTube watchers what that looks
yeah,
like. But if you're not taking advantage of the audio overviews, you should. I just finished writing a 45-page assessment document, and I actually used this feature on that document, and it did a really, really good job for someone that would be coming in that didn't want to read the entire thing but wanted to get the gist of it in 5 minutes.
right. And this is something that if you are, just depending on how you digest information, right? Some of us, if you're kind of always got your headset or your AirPods in, like this could be a good option to. Oh,
I can see it.
yeah.
I can see it playing. I don't know if we're necessarily
I
going
don't
to
have
hear
my
it,
audio
but
shared through here, but
yeah,
it's
that's
got a
fine.
good,
But it,
good speaking voice, not too robotic. And here it's basically generated for this document a 2-minute and 47-second overview.
and I think if you click the dot there next to the 15 seconds, is you can change
Yep.
the amount of speakers. Oh, so yeah, you can switch it to podcast style and choose if you want 2 people, 3 people,
Yep.
what you want the length to be. It's a really neat feature. Like Google kind of
Yeah.
rolled this out with Notebook LM first, but this is something that if don't sleep on this, because if you
Yeah.
learn from
It's really
listening,
cool.
this is a great feature.
Right. And I'm going to just say, as someone who has to do a lot of speaking in front of audiences, things like that, if you literally want an idea, you have to present a report to a customer, and you have 5 minutes to give them the gist. Listen to the audio overview. You can view the transcript. You can take notes. You can try and generate put your own tweaks on it, and give yourself speaker notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we all, I think, struggle with from time to time, and Scott and I both write a lot of documentation and reporting. Well, oftentimes he and I will only have 2 minutes in a meeting to introduce a report. But look, I could take a report like this. I could ask questions. I could make a audio summary to give me some ideas of how to speak to it, and also create an FAQ so that if I get questions in a meeting about a document, I could use it. So don't just think of these as like cool parlor tricks. Try and think a few steps ahead of like how you could really use some of these features to your advantage. Whether you literally have to give a podcast on a topic or you have to present in a meeting, you could figure out a way to do it utilizing kind of triangulating between these things. This is great. So it's rolling out. So if so I don't want anyone, this is kind of one of those things that happens a lot between OneDrive and SharePoint. OneDrive gets the features first, but the documents that we all care about doing this with don't often live in OneDrive. They live in SharePoint Online. They live in a team, however you want to think of your document libraries. So coming soon, you'll be able to do this stuff, and you don't have to move everything into OneDrive in order to take advantage of it, which, of course, please don't do that. But it's a great tool for
Don't
those
do
that
what
have
I
the
had
license.
to do a year ago.
What's that?
I said, don't do what I had to do a year ago. Microsoft made it easier. Clearly, they saw in the telemetry that more than just me was doing this, moving files from SharePoint to OneDrive. So they could use these features, and that's why we're seeing it kind of extend and
We
get better.
do still see quite a bit of it.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I think some of it, like when I see people setting up, Basecamp One in OneDrive versus SharePoint Online, it usually speaks to um, sharing policies, things like that.
Hmm.
So if your sharing policies are vastly different between OneDrive and SharePoint Online, maybe it's time to re-examine those things. That would be my guess. I sort of live in a world, I think Scott also lives in this world, where there may be more open sharing policies around, in a OneDrive space versus a SharePoint Online space.
Yeah.
So take a look at,
The
go into the SharePoint admin, take a look at your sharing policy. It's
the
worth it.
rabbit hole just keeps getting bigger on it too as we're talking about this, because like when you start to talk about your sharing and your security is, if someone's picking something up out of SharePoint and moving it to OneDrive, should they be allowed to do it? Is that document labeled? Is it
Yeah.
protected? Is it encrypted? Depending on what your sharing settings are people exfiltrating data to like
Yes.
Gmail addresses, Hotmail addresses, stuff like that? Hotmail, I'm showing my age. That doesn't exist anymore. It's live.com now.
Well, it's just one of those things where um, people will find, people will
Hmm.
find a way. And I always say, like, if you have vastly different policies in OneDrive versus SharePoint, why? Why? Why
Yep.
do you? And some of it may come down to, well, OneDrive is for your, you know, individual working files, and SharePoint is for our important stuff. But remember, people are moving important stuff into OneDrive, and we consider that like a less secure space.
Yep.
I usually say try and have things match across the board. And if people have different business requirements and different needs, remember, you do not have to have one policy across the board. You can have different security groups, the customization possibilities are endless.
And label your documents. Please label your documents. All right,
Yeah, and
Holly.
use sensitivity labeling. Um, but it is one of those things where there will be some equality now between these two environments as it pertains to these copilot actions, which is exciting.
Hey everybody, post-production Scott here. Holly and I had such a great time talking through all the new features coming to Teams that it made the episode run pretty long this month. So we decided to move all of the Teams talk into a roadmap rundown styled show that will release at the same time as this episode as a bonus podcast in September. If you're watching on YouTube, you can get to that by visiting the link in the top right corner of your screen. All right, now back to your regularly scheduled program. Thanks again for tuning in this month. If you want to learn more about what we talked about today, you can visit the links in the show notes. If you have questions or need help with implementing or managing your day-to-day IT services, Virteva is a leading Microsoft solutions partner and a managed security and IT service provider. We're here to help. You can contact us by emailing us at letstalk@virteva.com or by visiting our website at www.virteva.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and if you made it this far, please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. It really helps out the channel. Have a great day. Take it easy.